G'day guys, it's Robbie from Travelling Whisky Reviews again for the Monday Mash episode 2. I'm on location today out of the Speakeasy down at Bakery Hill Distillery out of the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and I'm here with Dave and Andrew Baker. Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you guys. Nice to be involved.
Great. So we're out here at the distillery speaking to the producers, the people that you want to hear from, and I'm just going to throw over to you, Dave, to start and explain to me how you came to be here.
Well, it was a long story. I nearly died. I looked in the diary and I've been sitting up here 20 years ago. And I said, oh my God, doesn't time fly when you're having fun? Basically, the story here was my background is organic chemistry. And I always wanted a job when I retired. I thought, what does an organic chemistry teacher do when one retires, apart from sitting on a veranda in a rocking chair? That wasn't me. So I thought, well, look at breweries, look at distilleries and the like. I could start up that and use my chemistry. Like all these situations, a sudden problem arises. And the sudden problem arose when I started reading about single malt whiskies around the world. And most of them told me that it was the air, it was the water, and it was the fairies at the bottom of the garden that really made the difference. And I said, rubbish. We make some of the best wines in the world. We make some of the best beers in the world. Why can't we make some of the best single malts in the world? It's a process. If you understand the process and you modify it for local conditions, it must be possible. And as all the women listening would understand, you tell a guy that they can't do something, you watch him say, I bet you I can, and get their back up. And that's what happened to me. So 20 years ago, I started reading about whiskies, and most of what I read was just wrong. And I basically had to come up with formulas and processes that I thought would work. And we've modified those processes from day one. So that's how we started here.
And that was 1999, 2000?
That's correct.
And in 2005, if I'm correct, you were described as the best small distillery in the world in the Whisky Bible.
That was from Murray, yes, which was amazing.
So what happened in those 5 years?
It was a very, very steep learning curve, I can assure you. I had to buy just about every bottle of whiskey I could lay my hands on. I didn't drink it all, but I gave it a good go. Because would you believe, I never drank whiskey before I started this. I had never
Drinker and a wine drinker.
I enjoyed wine, so I had a very steep learning curve, you might say. So basically it was read books, read articles, and try and understand what the market wanted and what the market was getting. So that was a very, very steep learning curve.
Okay.
Very rapidly I fell in love with a particular region in Scotland of Speyside because I loved the caramel, malt, honey characteristics that come from Speyside whiskies. And I must say they're the ones that have really forced the processing that we do here now to achieve that same sort of caramel, nut, honey characteristics.
Well, you just kicked off my next question, which I was going to throw to Andrew about your preferred styles of whiskey. But I can cross that off my list.
Well, I guess you could fill out the answer really in terms of wanting to recreate that beautiful Speyside sort of flavour. It comes down to the still is a really important thing. So Dad had to get the still designed and engineered by a UK company. There was no Australian still engineering at that point in time. So they here designed that still to produce that beautiful fresh flavour that we were looking for, as well as then going in to look at yeast. And Dad uses 40 to 50 different styles of yeast to get started to try and identify the one that really creates that perfect flavour that goes to track.
And that's top secret.
And that's top secret.
Okay. Your yeast style is top secret? Is that what you're saying?
The actual identifier.
Yeah, of course.
But and then even the barrels. So we traditionally use American oak ex-bourbon barrels. We find that's producing the flavour profile that we're really looking for. Dad's a massive sweet tooth. Chocolates, ice creams, everything. Hence we've got that sort of trademark sweet. You make
residual sugar.
It's funny that you just mentioned, which wasn't on my list about yeast. I had this conversation with some malt friends of mine, the Eastern Malt Men, It's an exclusive little tasting club, only 6 of us in the club. But we were talking about how for years and years, as you said, Dave, that they were talking about the quality of water and barrel was the main influencer of flavour, and now it's coming out that yeast has a massive impact on flavour.
Very, very much so. I would believe, apart from the still, which is crucial to the flavour profile of the whisky, next, very, very close to it is the yeast. Because it's the yeast job is to convert all the sugars that have been produced in brewing into the organics. Alcohol is just one component. It's all those other components which will ultimately make up the flavour of your whisky. It's very much, as I always say, similar to an artist. If you haven't got the colours on the palette to start with, they'll never end up on the painting. If we don't have the organics in our wash that we're going to distill, they'll never ever end up in the whisky. So yeast is crucial, and it's crucial to maintain the same yeast regime that you're using.
I wanted to ask, so in my opinion, the main issue that's faced the Australian whisky distillers, craft distillers, the whole Australian scene over the time is production levels.
Yes.
Do you agree with that, or what's the main issue that you've seen over your 20 years?
I would say production levels are crucial. We have found it very, very difficult. When I started, I went round to government, state and Commonwealth. Most of them thought I was a bloody fool. Go away, we're not interested, you can't make whisky in Australia, so don't talk about it. I've got no support whatsoever. Basically, for those years that I've been in operation, I've supported it myself. The other thing which is absolutely crucial to whisky manufacture is consistency of product. Anyone can make whisky. The difficult thing is to make it consistently the same batch after batch after batch. But also bearing in mind that we're going to get some variation depending on the barrels that we use, because no two trees in the world are alike, no two barrels will mature to the same extent or the regime. But if that's the only thing we're worrying about, that's fine.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, and I read that you're talking about production levels. You were exporting to a number of countries, and that's had to be dialed back slightly.
We were exporting to France, Germany, and Sweden.
Yeah.
The problem we found that happened to us was whisky was discovered in Australia. They suddenly discovered, hey, what is this stuff called single malts? It's not blended whiskies with a red label or whatever. And the local market has just taken off in Australia. So we are unable to meet the demand now for the local demand. So as a result of that, our export have been trimmed back a little.
Well, we're the most important anyway.
Absolutely.
Well, our main concern is really looking after our customers that have supported us for the last 15 years, our bars and shops and stores, and we couldn't look them in the face and tell them that we're selling all our product out of Europe or China or Asia or anywhere, and sorry, we can't sell you any more whiskey. You know, they're the guys that we know and that we see and that have supported us. So that's been our sort of vision from the start.
Of course. And when we talk about production levels, what are we talking here, litrage-wise a year? What are you producing?
We're producing probably now the equivalent of around 10,000 bottles a year.
Okay.
Our bottles are 500ml units. So that's probably obviously not going to be available for the next few years. So we increased production about 5 years ago, so in the next 12 to 18 months we're going to have quite a lot more coming through. But just, you know, with whisky, the name of the game unfortunately is you've got to wait for it. And we choose to mature our whiskies a little bit longer here in Australia than most people, so our whiskies are 6, 7, sometimes 8 years old.
Probably, and something else to add to that, we don't bottle on a specific age. We bottle when a barrel has reached its peak. That's what we are proud to provide. Ages are irrelevant, because some barrels mature more quickly than others take time.
Sure.
The other thing that we do is everything that we produce is single barrel bottlings. We don't mix barrels because what you're getting is an average, and the average is always worse.
Sure.
So single barrel and bottled when it's at its peak.
Right. So we've just talked about the production level. So I wrote an article. My partner Matthew Barnard wrote an article about excise tax and the impact that has on the industry. Would you be able to give us a rundown about excise tax and what it means to you? And
we've had a long-running battle with excise to have excise removed or reduced slightly. The winemakers have successfully done that. Brewers have successfully done that in the past. What's happened in the last 12 months is that we've been allowed to claim a percentage of the excise that we pay. This is only in the last couple of years. So for the first 15 years I was paying full excise on everything we sold, knowing full well that wineries and breweries were not. That made it very, very difficult to build a business like I was doing, as a family business and not a large corporation. But excise is an extremely heavy commitment to production.
Distilleries get charged based on the alcohol content in terms of percentage alcohol as opposed to per litre of alcohol. So at a 46% spirit, you're getting charged a lot more than any other alcohol, and makes it very, very difficult.
And there's plans from July to increase that excise rebate sort of threefold. Well, is that going to help, and you think, for newer distilleries? Or
look, it'll help, but yes, no, it'll help.
Yeah.
Anything will help compared with nothing, which we weren't getting.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Or were getting.
And is that? Have you heard whether that's confirmed? That's still going ahead at this
I
time?
believe it is.
I
believe that they've increased the amount that we can draw back after paying excise.
Yes, yeah, great. Well, that'll help, especially new people coming into the scene that are
very much so.
Largely out of pocket. As a company to set up, the setup cost for a distillery is absolutely phenomenal.
The hardest thing is that you have to have the setup costs. You have to have everything set up before you can produce. Once you've got it all set up, you then have to get authority from the Commonwealth Government to say, yes, you can produce. And so basically you've done a total setup and wait to get the authority before you can start. So it's a massive commitment financially.
Andrew, why don't you tell everyone what we're drinking here?
Well, I'm surprised it's taken you this long to really talk about it, Robbie. Now, what we're drinking here is our special, very special whiskey, which we released just before Christmas last year. And the whiskey is actually made from a Belgian peated malt. So Dad got a shipment or
About 6 pallets.
6 pallets of the Belgian malt a good 7 or 8 years ago, and produced it up as a bit of a trial. And I was just going through the barrels October last year, and I said, we better try this Belgian malt and see how that's coming along.
Can we try it now?
I think you can try it now.
You can do whatever you want in here. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do.
Cheers. Hope you enjoy it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I tried it and said, Dad, you've got to try this. It's absolutely ready to go. No more waiting on it. So we bottled one. Dad took it home. Couldn't stop drinking it.
No, that's a home secret.
A home secret.
I like these. I like home secrets.
Yeah, but it's heavily peated, so it's and it's more of a coastal style peat, so it's more of your in your Isla style range of whiskey. It does have that beautiful still sweetness though that goes through our entire range. We didn't know what to call it. We'd run out of ideas, and basically had the idea of throwing it up to our social media followers. Put it on Facebook and Instagram, and within 2 days we had about 600 entries. So went nuts, and then it was my job to try and rifle through all these Facebook entries, and we decided the top 10 names would get a small mini bottle to take home, and then the winner would get the first full-size bottle. So the hard job was narrowing it down. We couldn't actually narrow it down to a single winner, so we decided on 2, and Robbie here actually came up with the name. So Robbie came up with Sovereign Smoke, and then we had another winner who came up with the word Defiantly Peated, which we thought really fit in with our messaging here. So Dad was a bit of a whiskey rebel back in the days, So we like that sort of that defiance, and with the Sovereign Smoke tying in with the Bakery Hill story, that just really hit the spot. So Robbie got his bottle.
And besides getting married and having 3 kids, thank you, Alana, that's probably my greatest success to date, I would say. So thank you for that.
Congratulations. Big pressure on you for the next one now.
Absolutely.
Right, correct.
Well, maybe you can name one after me. Let's see. We'll work up to it.
We'll work with that.
To finish us off, I want some secrets. I want to know, you heard it here first on Travelling Whisky Reviews, something that no one else knows. What are we doing?
Well, I think you can talk about what we're about to do, but one thing that is really important that all your listeners understand is age statements. We could put age statements on our bottles 7, 8, 9 years. And they'll immediately say, oh yes, but we buy Scotch whisky that's 12, 14, 15 years. You know, it must be better over in Scotland because they mature it longer. Well, there's the problem. The thing to remember is that at storage temperatures, maturation temperatures below 7 degrees C, whiskies do not mature at all. Scotland has, I hope there's no Scottish people listening because this might hurt a little, I'm sorry. Scotland has 2 climates, cold and bloody cold. And because of that, they need to mature their whiskies for 10, 12 years before they're ready for summer. Because of the climatic conditions in Melbourne, Australia, we can do that in half the time. So our 7-year whiskies are equivalent to a 14-year-old Scotch whisky. And this is something that people don't really understand what it's doing.
And a question I get asked all the time is, if there's no age statement on an Australian whisky bottle, should I assume that it's 2 years old? You know, and that's not the. I mean, I'm not saying it's not the case in any bottles. It most certainly can be the case, but no, don't assume that.
I made the decision not to put an age statement on our bottles for 2 reasons. Firstly, 7, 8 or 9 would clash with the Scottish years, number one, and it's confusing. I have to tell people it's 7, 8 or 9 years here. And number 2, that the important thing with that, as I forgot,
is that we don't want a bottle just because our labels say it's 6 years old.
Thank
That's
you.
why I'm around here. Finish your story.
Well done, thank you. I'll just have another
So,
sip.
as I mentioned, our barrels, they could anywhere between 6 and 9 years old, so we don't want to get tied into one particular number.
Exactly.
Yeah, you were telling me a secret.
Okay, so you heard it here first.
Now, you're not going to tell that secret, are you?
Oh, well, I don't know.
You know?
Pull me up on it if I do. We are going to be relocating away from our beautiful North Bay.
I didn't know that. Are we?
Well, maybe I shouldn't be telling you this. I mean, he doesn't even know.
You seem wise.
Well,
That's rocking during the veranda time.
so we've been out here for 20 years, and it's been a great spot. It's done the job for us, but we've grown a bit too big for this place. Plus, we want to be closer to where our customers are. So we actually found a beautiful old red brick building, a beautiful old wool store from the 1900s in Kensington. So it's going to be right by the train station. We're going to be able to have a proper cellar door retail type experience there, close to other cafes and bars and restaurants, and it's really going to be setting us up in good stead for the next 20 years, really. So toward the end of next year, it's a little bit of a wait. It'll be toward the end of next year, but stay tuned with all the news. And we're going to look forward to actually hosting a little bit of a whisky event, probably in the space before we even do anything to it. As a little bit of a taster for what's going to be like.
That information will be on our website. So if you keep an eye on the website, you'll get an update on how we're going.
And the website will be down the bottom in the comments of this video, so you'll be able to find all that.
Beautiful. There you go.
Well, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think we've gone over our 15 minutes, which I told you I only allocated you, Dave. But that's okay. For Whisky Royalty, we're happy to do that. I hope you've enjoyed. Look forward to the next episode, episode 3, the dreaded distiller, Bo Schlick from Corowa. I do a call out every time. I'm calling you out, Bo. I want you down here in Melbourne, and we'll organise you. So that's something to look forward to for next time. But until then, Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us, Robbie. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Thank you, Robbie.
Come out and visit us.
Yes.
See
Yes,
you guys.
cheers.